Welcome back to Quaran TV's episode number 3. It's great to be back with you guys, and this is actually turning out to be a lot more fun than anticipated, and there's been a lot of really good reception from the viewers, so thank you so much for supporting us in this crazy idea that we have just to help us pass the time while we are at home in Quaran TV. So looks like the black chicken soup was really popular for you. You were really interested in that. Some people I heard went out and purchased the black chicken and tried the recipe at home. So I'm curious to hear how these recipes turn out for you. If you feel like sharing, always happy to hear and interact with you and share ideas. So today we're going to go back to the principles of traditional Chinese medicine and talking about nourishing the Jing again. So the Jing is the battery of the body, and it's the foundation and the substance. And so we always want to be looking at creative ways or daily ways that we can keep our Jing thriving and full and replenished and abundant. So one of the ways to do that is through foods like black beans, marrow soups. So this one is, today we're going to be making a lamb stew. So the marrow from the bones in the stew is what's going to help replenish the Jing, as well as the black beans here. And then of course we have some mushrooms, which are really good for that umami flavor, also going deep into the kidneys to keep that Jing supple and abundant. So that's our preview into what we're doing today. Today's all about lamb stew and what we need to do. It's a very quick recipe, and I do use my Instant Pot for this one. If you have an Instant Pot, you can use yours as well. And if for any reason you don't have an Instant Pot or any type of pressure cooker, no worries. Then you can follow the steps. Just do it the way that we cook the black chicken. So you would have your big pot with all of the water and cook it for probably about 2 hours or so. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So my Instant Pot has nothing in it. I'll go ahead and show you. So it's empty right now. And we're just gonna take a little bit of oil to put at the bottom so that our ingredients don't stick. So I use olive oil. The place where I normally get this oil is currently closed, so I'll have to be a little bit sparing on the usage, but that's okay. So just enough to coat the bottom to keep my onions from getting stuck. I'm gonna go ahead and move these cans out of the way, sorry, so you can see what we're doing here. And I'm very lucky, it's the spring onions in the little raised bed that I have outside are really thriving right now. Actually, they're flowering. They're about ready to flower. And so I was a little reluctant to cut the onions because I feel like all that energy is going into the flowering, and you know what that means for the cycle of life for my spring onions. But they've been there for several years and I don't really do anything to keep them thriving, so I think they're going to do just fine. So I went ahead and cut from the bigger ones, and we're just going to go ahead and put these in here. If you don't have spring onions, no worries, you can use a yellow onion. I just decided to use the spring onion because we happen to have a lot. So I've got the onions in there, and depending on how much you like onions, you can use less or more. Our star ingredient is lamb, and so these are pieces of lamb that actually do have bone on them. So here's like a piece of bone. And I bought these at the farmer's market, the same place that I went to buy the black chicken. And I like buying it there because they have a halal counter. So what that means is the way that they have butchered the meat has been consistent with holy law, and so I find it to be a little more compassionate, and of course then that makes the meat taste a little bit better. So what I've done in the meantime is covered the pieces in salt, and I just went ahead and threw some curry on top of it as well, and it's been in the refrigerator for about an hour. I'm just letting the salt and the curry marinate onto the meat, so it's ready to go. Now, you don't have to marinate it with curry if you don't want to. You can just take it fresh, rinse it off and throw it into the Instant Pot and then add your seasoning later. But since I knew I was going to be doing this, I thought I'd just go ahead and do some prep work to make this a little bit easier, and went ahead and coated them in salt and the curry. So all we're going to do now, this has been washed and seasoned, and we're just going to go ahead and put that into the Instant Pot. This is 1 pound of lamb pieces, and this is for 3 people. So I would say we're not going to have an abundance of meat, but we're going to have an abundance of broth, which is the good part. So if you have more people, to feed, then you can use a little bit more, or if you just want to have more meat. So instead of making it full of meat, I've decided to add more vegetables. And like the chicken soup, you can get creative and add different ingredients. Since this is all going into the Instant Pot, I'm just going to go ahead and put my 3 colored potatoes. These are just petite potatoes that you get at the store. They're organic, and I like the darker ones that have more flavor. Because they're so small, as you can see how small they are, I don't really need to cut them into pieces, and I kind of prefer not to. I call them potato poppers. So they go into the pot just the way they are, and they'll cook all the way through, no worries about that. And then when you're eating your soup, you grab a potato and you bite into it, it just kind of goes pop. And so, healthy potato poppers, that's what that is. Here I have some organic chopped kale that is previously frozen. And I buy the frozen kind because then whenever I have a recipe like this one, I don't have to worry about going to the store and getting my fresh kale. And so, you know, I have a busy lifestyle, so sometimes I find things that are convenient, easier to do, and this is one way of getting greens in, healthy greens into the meal. So my measurement was about as much of the meat, then I'm going to put about that much measurement of the kale, this chopped kale, because it's going to cook down. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that into the Instant Pot like that. Very easy. And these 2 dishes are complete. Okay, so again, Instant Pots are lovely because you can just throw everything into the pot at one time, and you don't have to go through the long cooking process like I did with the black chicken, unless you want to, or you don't have the pot. So I'm a big believer in 1-pot meals just because I like the convenience of it. And so these are organic baby portobello mushrooms. And no need to cut these up too small, just go ahead and cut them in chunks. And they've already been washed, by the way, so no worries on that. And again, this is gonna bring out that wonderful deep, earthy umami flavor that makes everybody go, that's so good. So very easy. Cutting the mushrooms, that goes in there. And so, you know, repairing your Jing and keeping your Jing abundant and healthy is a form of preventive medicine. And traditional Chinese medicine and Qigong is all about prevention versus cure. So we want to pay attention to our health on a daily basis rather than wait for things to get out of whack and then try to fix it. So I do need to wipe off the cans. As you know, I always wipe them off. And these are organic canned black beans. Again, because the black has the more protein in it, which means that it's more restorative for our Jing. You can always use fresh beans, no need to use a can. I just find it's very convenient. So I'm just gonna dump 2 cans with the juice into the pot. Very convenient. As you can see, we are almost done here. And So now I've got potatoes and mushrooms and kale and black beans and lamb. All of these things are really good for the Jing and are going to help restore your kidney water element. Last step is to add some water. So excuse me, I'm gonna turn around a little bit so I can add some water into this pot. I'm gonna use this can because that will allow me to get the rest of the good stuff that's on here. So I'm just gonna put enough water to cover. So that's about 2 cans to cover. You can see just enough to cover the ingredients in here because they have a lot of water in and of themselves, so they will cook down. And now the last step would be to add seasoning to taste. So whatever you like in your soup, you would add the seasoning at this point. So let's see, what do we have in the spice cabinet? And so I know that the meat has a little bit of salt on it already, so I'm just gonna add 1 more little teaspoon of salt. This is my pink Himalayan. It goes on everything. And I've got some cumin. So I know if the lamb already has some curry on it, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more cumin to it. And sure, why not? How about some chili powder, because that will add a little bit of heat and kickstart some fire, so just a little bit less. And so these are very approximate. As you can see, I cook by sight. And I would say that's, you know what, maybe some black pepper would be good in there. I think that might work. So just gonna add a little bit of that. Very little. If I was cooking on the stove, I would probably add garlic, but I found that the garlic in the pressure cooker is a bit too much. And so I don't put garlic in anything that goes inside of the Instant Pot because the flavor is just, it overpowers everything and it makes it very strong. And garlic and I don't always get along very well. So there you go. Everything is in there. It's ready to start cooking. Maybe if you want, you can take a spoon and just make sure that the spices get in there. But you know what? The Instant Pot is going to do all that work for you, so you don't have to do anything. Last step. Super easy. What is this, like 5 minutes and you're done? Put the lid on, close it, hit soup. I've got mine on high pressure, 75 minutes, and a little red button in the middle says normal. So it's between less and more, so it's normal. So that's gonna go in there for about 75 minutes under high pressure, which brings it out to about just over 2 hours if we were cooking it at room pressure here. And so I'll come back in a little while after 75 minutes and we'll see what happened with the lamb stew. Thanks. Hello and welcome back. Let's take a look and see what has happened with our lamb stew that's been in this Instant Pot for 75 minutes. Before we came onto the camera, I went ahead and released some of the steam so that we could open the lid. And so the safety device has released so we can open our Instant Pot safely. I'll set this lid down to the side. And everything in here looks great. So we'll use the ladle so you can see what this looks like. So the potatoes are cooked. The broth looks pretty thick, which I like that. I don't like to open it and see a watery broth. The kale is well dispersed in here, and there's no way that I can lift this for you to see. This too hot, but maybe you can see that. And the lamb is fully cooked. I know that because it's falling off of the bone. And everything looks great. It smells good, it looks good. So let's go ahead and serve a little bit so you can see what this looks like. So there you go. We got 3 pieces of lamb, some beans, and one of those little potatoes, which we would call the potato popper. And that's your lamb stew and your Jing tonic. Let me show this to you. I think you can see that. So we have the lamb here is, like I said, it's very tender, it's very soft. As you can see, it didn't take any effort at all to pull it off of the bone, off of the other pieces. And this is a piece of bone right here. So the marrow has been under pressure and under steam in this pot. So it has released marrow into the broth, which of course we're going to absorb into our cells and get all that wonderful nutrition and replenish our Jing. And there's one of those potatoes, and you know, you can cut it in half and let's see, watch it go pop. There's your potato popper. And this is one of the white ones. Let's see what one of the blue or purple potatoes looks like. It has a little bit of a darker color, or maybe that's the red one. And there was a red one in here. Well, they all look the same now. They all have this dark color. That would be because of the black beans. But the broth is nice and thick, and the beans have cooked down, adding some extra texture to the broth. And we should taste the flavor. One moment. I'm gonna steal a spoon from over here, and let's taste the flavor and see what happened. So I'm going to, oh, that's good. That's very good. So the way lamb tastes is a little more gamey than, definitely than chicken, and a little bit more than beef. And what meat does, so meat in and of itself, red meats like beef, lamb, other red meats that you might be consuming, they have a warming nature to them. They're considered in terms of temperature, not temperature, but what they do to the body is warming. Whereas like your fish and your chicken are considered more cooling, your red meats are more warming. Within the realm of red meats, lamb is considered hot. And so people who are cold-natured or who have cold invasion for whatever reason, or are in a cold season, can benefit a lot from having a lamb stew. So I know that we are here now, I guess, in the first couple of days of April of 2020. So probably for the most of us, we are outside of that winter season, and that cold feeling is beginning to dissipate. We should be moving more into our spring foods. But we might lean back into the watery stews, and especially the broths and the meat bone broth, if we're feeling very lethargic, our body is weak, or we're recovering from illness or disease. If we're fortunate enough to enjoy great health and none of those apply for us, then having a stew like this once a week or once every 2 weeks is a really great way to keep up your internal constitution and balance out those minerals, those vitamins, those nutrients, and the marrow that you need in order to stay healthy. So remember that we always like to stay on the side of prevention rather than on the side of curative. Now, this black rice that we recorded in a separate video is already prepared and ready to go as well. So if you were feeling a little bit adventurous, you could add a little bit of the rice into your lamb stew broth and try both of them together. So let's take a taste and see. Yeah, that's good. So I can't wait to have a bowl of this after. So I hope that you enjoyed this recipe. It's super easy. You saw that it didn't take very much time at all to put together, but the health benefits are abundant. So I wish you health and see you next time. Thank you.